Hi, friends, and welcome to the Living Resilient podcast. Remember, if you want to listen to stories that would encourage, enlighten, or empower you, hit the subscribe button so that you wouldn't miss an episode. Today, we have a guest who is the Professor of Leadership and Enterprise at University of Bolton, and he is Professor Christian Harrison. Now, looking at his LinkedIn profile, he has lots of accolades, lots of things he has done, and I didn't really know what to pick out, but I will just try and summarize it. His first degree was in pharmacy, where he practiced for a while before moving over to the field of leadership and management. He has an MBA and he also has a PhD in leadership and management, and he's published lots and lots of research articles. Now, the journey to success, of course, is not easy. So what we're here to do today is to listen to how he has progressed as an early career researcher into now, of course, now he's now a professor, and the challenges that he must have encountered and what kept him going. So what made him resilient? Welcome, Professor Christian, to the podcast.
Thanks, Emma, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's great. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. The very first question, what we usually start with, is getting to know you. So outside academia, like I said, you have loads. I mean, your LinkedIn profile is so impressive. So outside that, what you do in terms of you lecture in leadership, how would you describe yourself? Who is Professor Christian Harrison?
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Outside academia, most of the time people are usually more concerned about what I do within that space. So it's great that somebody's asking me something different. So
Yes.
I'm happy to be here. Many people might not know I'm Nigerian.
Okay.
Most of the time, my name is quite misleading.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My name is-
Christian Harrison
Exactly.
sounds like an actor, it's very American.
A lot of people like, I get a lot of emails thinking that I'm white or something, but I am Nigerian. So I'm from the east in Nigeria. For those of us from Nigeria, we know the east, the west, and the south, and the north. I'm from Abia State, so I'm Abian, and I'm the first from a family of three. So I'm the first son. For the Nigerians, they call me the Okpara of the family. So I'm the firstborn of that family. So I have two other siblings. And I lost my dad when I was quite young. And that's because I'm going to share more about that. And that's one of the things that made me quite resilient. And so when I moved to the UK, that'll be like many years ago. That'll be like that's close to 14 years now. So I've been here for quite a while. And that's really, of course, I'm married. I have 4 beautiful kids as well. And it's been a journey. It's been a good journey. And I'm so happy that I'm here to share my experience.
Yeah, it has been a journey. I know that anyone that has undergone a PhD is usually, an interesting journey, and we would want to know more about you. But first of all, you made a statement that it was when you lost your dad that you became resilient. Do you mind unpacking that just a wee bit? I know it's a bit personal, but how did losing your dad make you resilient?
Exactly. Thank you very much for that. And one of the things you said, like, I should more like describe myself, isn't it? One of the first things I would say is, yes, I'm a very resilient person. I lost my dad when I was still in secondary school, and I went to the very well acclaimed secondary school in Nigeria, King's College.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people know King's College, one of the best. We say Florida.
Yeah.
So I lost my dad just some days before my junior YC. That's what we call the JSCE came out, and it was a horrible experience. He was murdered, because to date we don't know what really happened, and that could have taken me off, and that would have derailed, because my dad was definitely a big force and a real cornerstone for us then, and that's not what I or anybody could have experienced or envisaged that was going to happen. But rather than cry and say that, oh no, I'm not going to give up, because my mom was quite young as well. She was a young lady, so it was not something that she also expected. But instead, I like, no, I'm not going to give up. This is something that's happened, something I wouldn't expect, a big challenge. What I told myself then is, I'm going to ensure that I'll be the best. My dad is going to be proud of me. I'm going to ensure that if he was alive, he would be proud of me. And I'm going to help my brothers, help my family. So that was a driving force all throughout my life, right from secondary school to the university until date. I've always believed that when things like this come up, you need to don't just think about and just say, okay, no, I'm not. I'm going to be sad. No. But think about how you're going to become better. So think about how you're going to persevere. Think about how you're going to ensure that these things don't draw you back. And that for me was so important. It made me driven, really. One of the things that I boldly say is that I'm very passionate. I have a strong drive. I don't give up. And that's what has brought me here today. I can remember when I had an interview with, I think it was Guardian, and the first thing they asked me was like, how old were you when you became a professor? Like, I just said, okay, I was 35 when I became a professor. And the next thing, the headline from, I think it was Guardian then was, how I became a professor at the age of 35. I was like, oh no, the whole world now knows how old I was when I became a professor.
Wow.
But it just shows you, and to them it was a big, I didn't know it was a big feat, but it was when I achieved that feat at that point in time. But the reason, how did I achieve that? Because I'm passionate. I don't give up. I have this strong drive, and I believe that things shouldn't push you. You see the best in anything. You have to be optimistic. You don't give up. Yeah. Although I'll still say it, but you don't die until you're dead. So those things shouldn't. Never believe that things will not happen for you. And for me, that's one of the key things for me. So I'm driven, resilient, and finally, I'm also helpful. I think for me, helping others is so important. I know I've gone through a lot. That's why I'm here. I'm here because I feel that I need to share my experience.
Yeah.
Because people will learn from what you've
Absolutely.
done. I always tell people I'm a generous professor. I try to give my time. I try to empower people because I know that it's not everybody has the opportunity of the privilege to be where I am today. So every time I have the opportunity to share my experience, I always want to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think what you said is important in terms of when things happen to you, you get to decide, how you want to react. You decide your attitude. So in other words, this happened to you, you lost your dad, and of course you could have decided to sit down until the whole world is against me, I have nothing else, my cornerstone is gone, and maybe not do anything or not continue education, or have an excuse, because there will always be an excuse in life. But instead for you, you turned it around, and that pushed you, that drove you, that made you more resilient and determined to succeed. And not giving into the fact that life has happened or something has happened or something bad has happened. So I think that's a very important point. And yes, things would happen, bad things would happen, but it depends on how we choose to respond to it or react to it. And that would determine how far we go.
Exactly, because at the end is how you react to what happens. Because many people in leadership, we have what we call internal locus of control. So many people always blame every other thing apart from themselves. They don't take responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's so important that you say, of course, things happen. There could be disasters, natural disasters, like what happened with my dad and all that. But at the end, you need to take ownership and say, yes, how am I going to get better at this? What can I do? You have the power. You can take control of your life. And by the time you start to think that way, you see that things will be different. Many times people always blame others apart from themselves.
It's easier.
It's easier.
It's to blame
it's almost like a coping
else.
mechanism. But, of course, if you want to achieve great things, because let's see what's happening in the world today, there's a crisis. Even in the midst of crisis, even in the midst of challenges, some people that are doing well, what is making them succeed? Because they are resilient. They know this. They're taking ownership of their future. They're optimistic about how things are going to go. They they believe in solving key problems. So at the end, if you don't solve problems, then how can you succeed? So that's so every time I talk, give speeches and all that, I always tell people take control.
Take ownership, take control.
Take control.
Yeah.
I know there are challenges, but you can be the change you want.
Yeah.
And that's very important in life.
Yeah. So that's one thing I think I have learned as well. I've learned part of being resilient is the ability to take control or take ownership of the situation of what is, happening. So that is, I've never really thought about it that way, but so I've also learned something from you as a professor. Okay. So so that happened, you said when you were in secondary school, so you were fairly young. So you now grew up, I guess you did your university back in Nigeria. So at what point did you come over to the UK? And what made you come to do, I don't know, did you come first for your master's or for a PhD?
Okay, good. It's many people, like when I came years ago then, so what happened is I finished, of course, my secondary school then in King's College.
Okay.
So I went to University of first choice, as we say, University of Lagos.
Okay.
Many people argue, no, it's not. Unilag is not the best, but I'm proudly from Unilag. So I went to University of Lagos then, and surprisingly, many people don't know I'm a pharmacist. That was my first degree. I'm sure you might like wondering, okay, I know maybe a question might come in from that side.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm a pharmacist. So my first degree was in pharmacy, and the reason why I did pharmacy then because I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea. And I felt, okay, yes, by getting involved in medicine production and all that, I'll be able to do that. And I enjoyed it while I was a pharmacist. But then later I decided to do something. I decided to go. I remember when I finished pharmacy then, my late dean, God bless his soul, Professor Nduifudu, sat me down and said, because I had a first class then and all that. Mm-hmm. So he sat me down and told me, Christian, what are your plans? Do you want to be in academia? And I told him, no, don't worry, I want to. I'm like, no, academics, they don't make too much money. So I want to be rich. Uh-huh. So, but of course, it was not just about being rich. I just thought I could have more impact.
Yeah.
So I left. But he told me something, you're going to come back.
Oh, really?
So you're going to come back because I know the way you are, what you do, because I used to be the president of the student union then as well. He just thought that I would get tired of working in the industry because he had gone through the same route in his life, and he went to the industry and came back to academia. But the funny part is I didn't come back to the mainstream academia in pharmacy, but he was quite right.
Okay.
But I came back. So after practicing as a pharmacist, I just felt, okay, let me improve myself, and that's very important. You need to know when, because life for those in different careers, you need to be able to develop yourself as you go along.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want to do the mainstream pharmaceutical chemistry, clinical pharmacy, or pharmacognosy. I just wanted to do something more administrative. Mm-hmm. So that was when I left Nigeria in 2011, and I decided to do an MBA. Okay. So I went to University of Aberdeen. Then I didn't even know what the university to choose. I got a couple of admissions, Bradford, everywhere. I just said, oh, Aberdeen, Nigerians are there. Let's just go there. Okay. So I went, did my master's, the MBA then. I was the valedictorian, the best student. And it was quite strange because these are pharmacists. And you had a lot of people
doing MBA.
And he was still the best. What did he do? But I always tell people, and this is one of the reasons I'm driven. So anything I do, I always try to be the best in what I do. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important because you never know where life is going to take you.
Yeah.
And for me, that was important. So I finished my MBA then as the best student and distinction. They have not had a distinction in a while in the University of Aberdeen for the MBA. So that was when the opportunity came. Now this is how I moved into academia. So okay, then the head of school then approached me and said, okay, are you thinking of, do you want to do a PhD? Because you're a great student. Like you think you can do one. And I remember, all those doctors that used to tell me that you're a pharmacist. And I'm like, it's an opportunity, isn't it? Let me become a doctor.
A doctor.
So at least I can become a doctor.
At least you have the name doctor. They don't know what type of doctor.
Okay, but I had different offers then. I had fantastic offers coming back to Nigeria. I just felt then that PhDs are not things that because I thought I realized that while I was practicing as a pharmacist, then I was doing more of talking because, as you might notice, I like to talk. So I was doing a lot of talking. So I felt okay counseling people. So this would be a platform for me to do what I really love doing. So I now moved into academia, and of course I did my PhD then, leadership. As you can see, I've moved from lecturer to professor, couple of roles, doing a lot of this media interviews, chair of British Academy of Management, all those things that many people already know. But I've enjoyed the process. A lot of people tell me, why did you move? Maybe I think the money was no longer a factor again. And you can see how their life has changed.
Yeah.
They've become lecturers, senior lecturers, they're working in great establishments, and they're reaching out to you, and they are able to say, yes, oh, Christian, you changed my life. Thank you. And you can see what you have done. To me, that's a very, it's
Rewarding.
and for me, that's important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I think I'll now use the opportunity to say, those of you that are still, deliberating, should I go into academia or not? We have given you the reason. It's very rewarding and fulfilling. It depends on what you're looking for. It depends on your personality. It depends on the kind of impact you want to make. But so in case you're just still confused or thinking, should I do a PhD? Should I go into academia or not? That's it. So we've given you good reason. So back to your story. You came over to do an MBA. Were you married at that time, Christian?
Okay, good.
Because I want to delve into, because I know that coming here as a foreigner to study is not easy. There are challenges. So I want to know, delve into those difficult moments. I don't know, were you married when you came on?
No,
you weren't.
No, I wasn't married.
Okay, so would I say you found it fairly easy studying? And did you also work at the same time, or you were studying full time?
Okay, good. Thank you. I wasn't married when I did my master's. But when I started my PhD, I got married before then. So the challenges I had in my master's were quite different from the challenges I had.
Good. So let us know about it. And that's very interesting. We want to know the challenges in masters and then the ones when you were doing your PhD.
So, well, like you rightly said, Emma, it's you're coming. That was my first time going out of the shores of Nigeria.
Yeah.
So I was a single person coming to do my master's. So and then when I came, to be fair, the restrictions were not as great as
it's
it
now.
as
Rigid.
now, as rigid as we have. So there are more policies in place restricting people. And when I came for my master's, so like yes, so I was focused as a student. For me, the major challenge then was it was a different field. So having to cope with doing something, the accounting that I didn't know because I'm a pure scientist. So exploring new things, exploring a new environment. It was exciting and also challenging. So for the masters, for those people that are doing masters now, don't worry. Then it was quite different, a different experience at that point. After my masters, I got married to my masters. So now the challenge was different. Now you have a wife, you have family as well. So before I finished my PhD, I had one child. So
at what point did you get married? Was it after your master's, before you started your PhD?
Before I started my PhD. So I met my wife. She's Nigerian. So I met my wife in my master's class as well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I can remember Aberdeen, even later, they reached out to two of us and like they wanted us to write a piece of how love can emerge in the classroom. But I was a very, very serious student, don't get me wrong. Okay. But of course I met my wife, and I think again
you were serious, but you still had time to look up and survey the people in the class. I get what you mean. Okay.
but it was of course the way you say love at first sight. But of course I'm so happy I met her, and I think it also changed my perception of what what I really wanted as well. So it was quite easy. And after that, of course, the rest is history. And we were together. Then I started my PhD journey.
Did you know you were going to continue to a PhD? or
No, but the funny part is it was after, because I was after my master's I was going to go back.
okay,
Then of course would have gone back, would have stayed our life in
continue with your pharmacy.
pharmacy.
Okay.
So I had many options then. Like I said initially, I could have decided to continue because I worked in a couple of places. Then I did worked in NAFDAC, Lutz, and all that. So I can remember I had a job in GE then, and I had to reject the offer because I wanted to take up the role of the for the PhD, and then GE was just coming to Nigeria. So
Okay.
every time I meet people, like I just remember, like I would have been one of
One of
the
them.
forerunners in this space, and they're really doing very, very well.
Okay.
But then they didn't have a presence while I was doing, when I was in Aberdeen then. So I had to make a choice or make a decision, and the decision was to do
Stay and do your PhD.
do my PhD. I just felt okay. Let's get the doctor.
Let's get the doctor
Let's
title.
get the doctor
Yeah.
title.
Any which way, there's a doctor.
Let's get the doctor title,
Okay.
and I decided to do that part.
Okay. Okay. That's very interesting. So you just, you changed, you rejected the job and started PhD in leadership.
Exactly. So I started my PhD in leadership, and why I even chose leadership in the first place. I mean, that's another conversation because that was one of the best topics while I was doing my master's. So that I always tell many of my students, always when you're doing your master, there's something that you really appreciate. And for me, that was the topic that I wanted. And I always tell people, because many scholars know that there's a famous quote by Heraclitus that say change is the only constant thing. I always say that leadership is the only constant thing. Because if you look at the world today, the problems we are facing is due to ineffective leadership. And for me, that was a very strong push. I really wanted to know how we can make leaders more effective, how we can develop our leadership skill set. So when the PhD opportunity came, it was a given for me. I knew what I was going to examine. I came from Nigeria, and I've seen a lot of ineffective leaders over the years. I thought, okay, yes, how can we make people more effective? So I developed a framework. And then, of course, it's now, if you read most of my works, you see that I was one of the forerunners in that space. I believe that leaders should be entrepreneurial. There is a paradigm that's called entrepreneurial leadership.
Leadership, yeah.
So I strongly believe that leaders should be able to identify opportunities, exploit opportunities, and take risks. So I have a skill set of skills that people should have. So things I tend to do is more like try to tell you, yes, you want to be an effective leader. These are the kind of skills you need. So those are so while I was doing my PhD, that was really my focus. And over time, my research has lends to that area. As everything I do has been the books I've written about leadership, about crisis, all talks about leadership. And that's it. So of the PhD journey, of course, I had challenges.
How did you do it? I want to know how you went through, your PhD with the additional responsibilities. So I know it's very, very tough. I mean, I've been there. So that's what I really want you or want us right now to unpack.
No, it's great.
Difficulty.
No, it's for many people. I don't want to say it's easier when you're single and you're doing it full time. So people will say it's easier. Of course, I don't have the lived experience of that, so I can't say.
You did part-time?
I did it full time.
Okay, you did it full
time. Well, I don't know. I don't have lived experience of being single doing it.
Okay.
That's the thing I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I did it full time, and of course, I was married, and I had a child during the process as well. So the difficulty most of the time is that work-life balance.
Yes. Yeah.
Trying to see how you can be the best father, the best husband, and the best student. So there are three variables coming to play here. So for me, it was about managing my time. And that was really how it was. It was challenging. I learned as I went along, because sometimes you have some bad days, good days, especially with the financial pressures as well.
Absolutely.
So you also, because you're full time, you also you have to think about the fact that you have a family to cater for. So it becomes very difficult. So for me, that was really a big one. But how was I able to succeed? First, we look at resilience. But I was able to plan my time clearly. I used to have a very, very funny time that I wake up. I used to wake up as early as 3 a.m. for many years because I knew that, yes, I needed to wake up early to achieve the things I needed to. But I even went to have, at least I will have some family time to at least provide. And it's also good to have a supportive spouse, a support system. To be fair, I can't say that everything I achieved was based on just me doing it. Because if you don't have that support network, and that's one thing, being resilient, you need that support network. You need people that you can rant. I've held seminars like that. I tell people this is a safe space. Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be emotional. Some people say men shouldn't cry. I don't agree. Be emotional.
Thank
cry.
you. Please preach it. I like that.
Cry.
Because it's very, very, I mean, your perception is very different from an African. And I mean, 70% of Africans or Nigerians were like, men don't cry or real men don't cry. So please.
No, it's not a weakness. It's not a weakness at all. So you need to be able to express yourself. So it's so important that you have that support system. If you don't have one, look for one. In my case, I had my wife then. I was able to support. So when we needed the nurseries didn't work, at least she was there. She was also working as well. So it helps. And that was how I was able to go through that PhD journey, and of course move it straight into, that's another conversation, as an academic. But the challenge there was trying to see how I was able to manage my time. And as many people know, most times with the PhDs, you have more people that are older.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that this challenge is not just unique to me. It's something that many
a lot of people
go through. And right now it's even worse because of the financial ramifications, the immigration rules. So those things are even more challenging. But I always tell people, see, don't give up. I've gone through this. I have PhD students that have gone through this as well. You will achieve it if you just continue to do it. Just plan your time. Be focused on what you want to achieve. Get that support system working. Don't give up, and you will achieve it.
Christian, I want to try and be very, very frank with you. Yes, I agree with what you've said. So you said planning your time. I think that is very, very busy. We all know planning, time management. It's easier said than done. Okay. And then you also mentioned a support network, which many guests on this podcast have actually said that, made that clear that one aspect of being resilient is having a support network or a community you belong to, or friends, people you can rant to. What else? I have a question that is lurking behind, but before we get there, what else do you think is important for resilience? So apart from being able to manage, or for you, what else did you do? So you said you managed your time well. You had a support network, which was your wife, was very supportive. Is there any other mechanism that you used?
I think for me, I'll look at it now. Now this is me moving into the scholarly aspect as well. So you can't take it away from a professor. You still need to move into
something more of your course, experience, of course, what you went through.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, of course, the support network was important, and that was my wife.
Yeah,
clearly, and because to be fair, when I came in, then there were very few people that looked like me. So for me, it was easy for me to get the support from my wife. But for people, not letting others, there are many support mechanisms in place. Some people have Black communities that they can work with. Like I chair the Academy for African Studies, so we have communities of Black people that you can always, especially if you're in academia, that would be a very good point. But those early days, we had a few things of this nature. So please try to get that. But for me, one of the things that I did is, although I said managing my time, that's important. One of the things I tried to do was, personally, I'm a very optimistic person. And I think optimism is important. Some people might say looking at it from a perspective, but I always believe that I don't look at a glass as being half empty. I look at it as being half full. And that is very important in building resilience.
Positivity.
being positive. So take away the negativity. So every time I had issues, I was looking at the finish line for me. This is why I'm doing this, and I'm going to achieve it. I remember when I started the PhD, then a lot of people said, okay, no, it's going to take you 7 years to do that. I thought I'm going to do it in less than 3 years.
Don't tell me you did.
And I did.
Are you serious?
I did. I did it in 2.5. So,
Wow.
so that is very important. You need to be optimistic. You need to be positive. And you can see why I'm saying, okay, of course, time management is very key. Although it looks like people say it, but it's so important in everything that you do. So for me, optimism is very important. I had spoken initially about internal locus of control. And it's so important for me that apart from being optimistic, I don't blame other people for the shortcomings I have. I would say, yes, how can I be better?
Yeah.
A good story. I remember at one point, I had feedback from my supervisor when I started the PhD, and this is somebody that has been a high flyer. I've always been the best in everything I do. So right from my times in secondary school to university to secondary school, university, even primary school. So I'm always the typical nerd, not the nerd, but always successful. And the first time I wrote a report to my supervisor, and he's like, "This is not great,
good enough."
not good enough. This is not how to write." I'm like, wow, like, are you serious? Nobody has ever told me that before. That was the first time I was hearing that, and I went back. I cried. I was like, no, how can he tell me I can't write? Because I'm not used to hearing that. And I could have just said, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, okay, this is not the right thing for me. Or I was feeling I should go back to my pharmacy. I said, no, he's not going to ever tell me that again. That was my mindset. That this is going to be the last time he's going to tell me that. And after a couple of weeks and months, like, oh, Christian, you're not writing better. I just smiled. But that feedback could have taken it in a negative way.
Yeah.
But rather, that was what built me. And like, yeah, it made me better. And for me, that is very important.
So I want to use, I think the word for it is being able to be humble. So humility to realize your mistakes or maybe your weaknesses, and that determination to do better.
You're right, because at the end you need to be humble.
Yeah.
No man is or woman is a mountain. He's always and that's going back. That's always a learning point.
Yeah.
You need to have that growth mindset.
Because some people will take offense. Some people ego, like, how dare he says this? I've been a high flyer. I'm doing so well, and that could switch them off.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because at the end you have to know that you can't know everything. So you need to take you take the feedback in a constructive way and say, yes, I'm going to improve. But also that growth mindset is important. One thing is taking the feedback. Another thing is, how can I do
with it?
What do you do with it?
Yeah. How do you improve?
How do you improve? So for me, it's okay, yes, this is it. So I need to get involved in things that will make me better. So this is what has always made me more resilient. So, saying that I can't. So, I'll go and read more papers and find out how they write. I will attend more seminars about writing. So one thing is to just say that I want to be resilient, but you need to know how to achieve what people are looking for. If you don't know how to do it, just be a daydreamer. You can have a vision that you want to finish your PhD in 2.5 years, but how are you going to get there? So having that growth mindset is so important.
Yeah.
You need to have that growth mindset. And by doing that, you'll be able to solve that problem. Because at the end, resilient people are problem solvers. All the time. The only reason why I've been able to succeed, because I ask myself, okay, how will I solve this? What do I need to do? If you solve a problem, if you can provide a solution to a problem, then you will be the best. If your thesis is solving a problem, then you've already. I've examined several theses, and the first thing I ask myself is, okay, what is the thesis that one are you solving? What makes this solution original? Yeah. Then that's it. So you need to think about yourself as somebody that is able to solve a problem as well. And to me, that's important. So you have to be optimistic. Control your future because it's in your hands. You need to persevere. That's important. You need to have that support system in place. And you need to have a growth mindset.
Okay. Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, I'm taking notes. You see the difference when you're with a professor. I'm actually taking notes. Okay, what would you say your most difficult moment was when you were doing your PhD? So something that almost broke you, something that almost made you give up. I know we've all gone through it, or we've all been there, where you were like, it was really, for you, it was really the hardest time. What would you say that was?
Okay, let's see. It's for me. It's yeah. With reflecting on the experiences I had clearly while I was doing it, and the toughest challenge for me because while in academia, the major thing is you have to be a jack of all trades, a master of all. So you're expected to be good at research. You're expected to be good at teaching. You're expected to be good at being an academic citizen.
Right, administration as well.
Administration. So it's so difficult. So for me, it didn't really break me. But one thing that because I had a plan that I wanted to publish.
Okay.
That was publish or perish. So I was keen on getting, oh yes, doing this PhD journey, I'm going to publish a couple of papers, many papers before I finish, because that was the target. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to achieve the milestone that I
That's
set.
it. Okay.
So I had published like 2 papers, but there was one particular one that because I was targeting Leadership Quarterly. But those of us in
The high ranking journal.
those of us in academia, we know what it is.
Yeah.
So it really hit me because I knew then, or of course I got to know better about the impact of having those research papers. So I spent so much time, a couple of months, going through and submitting. Then I come back and it comes back and tells me, oh, you're being rejected. So that was like, it took me some weeks. I know I talk about resilience, but it took me some weeks to really get back because I really wanted to get that paper. And it still comes back to my mind today how I spent so much time. But I think over the years, it has made me, many people always share their successes. Very few share their failures.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that people know that these people that have succeeded, they have failed.
They failed in the past.
So there are a lot of grants that I've applied for, a lot of papers that are still waiting to be published, a lot of rejections that I've had. And instead of letting that affect me personally, it drives me to be better. But that was really one of my lowest points when I was trying to get into Leadership Quarterly and I didn't.
Oh, really? And you didn't? Well, you've now published in Leadership Quarterly?
I've published in several journals, but still not in Leadership Quarterly. Because I think the problem is after that experience, I've not gone back to Leadership Quarterly. But to be fair, I'm working on something for Leadership Quarterly.
Okay.
So, but I did, the thing is, I published other papers in other journals, but that Leadership Quarterly was where I wanted to. But I think, but it's still.
No, I think you're doing great. I mean, believe me, your profile is very impressive. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I said I had a question that was lurking, and I was thinking of how am I going to frame this. Okay. Now, you married. Your wife was very supportive. You said your PhD. It's very controversial what I'm going to ask now. Let's turn the tables around, okay? What if you didn't have a supportive spouse? How do you think that would have worked out for you? Or let's say it's a lady, a woman, obviously, female. And I want to believe that the challenges for females are slightly different from a man. Would you agree, first of all, yes or no? Do you agree?
Of course, yes.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a very, another thing that you don't know, I do a lot of, I'm the director of the Center of Leadership and Empowerment.
Okay.
And I strongly believe in gender research. And I believe that women are shattering the glass ceiling. And there are a lot of challenges that women faces.
Yeah, okay.
We all know about the concept of intersectionality, and we know how difficult it is for women. So if I'm to say that I have the same experience as a typical lady, maybe of even the black origin has, then that would be unfair. So definitely it's quite different.
Okay. So do you have any advice or what your thoughts would be if it was a lady in the position that you were in, like going through a PhD, maybe married, kids, obviously she would have more responsibility. I mean, what are the tips? What can you share about resilience in that situation for a lady?
Good. And it's not a very controversial question, Ima.
Okay.
I've had, of course, I've had PhD students as well, female students, and one thing, the challenges will be different.
Yeah.
Clearly, and it's still the same thing for a lady. She needs to have a supportive spouse. Because to be fair, it will be difficult. Not just a supportive spouse, but an understanding one as well. Because you would know, I've heard cases whereby PhDs have broken marriages, many. So it's research has shown that it can, especially depending on the culture that you're coming from.
Yeah.
So it's so important. But when the lady doesn't have that husband or supportive spouse, then she needs to get that support from somewhere. So that supportive network is important. That's why I said initially that for those that are blacks and of course other cultures, you might want to see, okay, are there platforms in place or are there communities that can help? Many universities now, they tend to have those communities that would help you. The student union, so there are communities that you can always link up to, and it helps because you know that yes, what I'm going through is not just unique.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's so important that you do that, get that support system. But at the end, you have to take control of your life. Internal motivation is of course, when people say it's easy to say, but it's the most important part of life. Because if you're going to depend on the man, if you don't have the husband to support you or the support system is in place, I'm not going to do it. It's easier. But at the end, internal motivation is key.
Important. Absolutely.
You want to get this done. I've seen people that have had kids that have pushed the pram to ensure they get this PhD done. They have done things that people would not do, had sleepless nights, even while the baby is crying. And they have had issues. Maybe they haven't been in the hospital, and in the hospital they're still thinking of writing. You need to be internally motivated to get this done. You need to be passionate about what you want to do.
Passionate,
That passion is, and I always say, as a writer and as a researcher, one important thing is the passion. Because if not, there are days that you don't want to do this, but that passion will drive you. So as a lady, it's important. The challenges, a lady, a man, anyway, but that passion to get it done is so important in life. And if you have that, then 50% of the work is done.
Internal passion, internal motivation. Thank you so much, Christian. So what would be an advice you would give to someone based on your experience as a professor of leadership and also your experience going through, challenges when you were doing your MSc and your PhD? What advice would you give someone that is listening in terms of, resilience or not giving up or keep pursuing your dreams or your goal? What would that be?
Okay, first thing I would say clearly is don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. A lot of people say fail forward. Learn from your mistakes. Because if you think, oh yes, if you get scared and you don't do things because you're afraid to fail, then you will never succeed. Like I said initially, many people don't share their failures, they only share their successes. But I've failed more times than I've ever succeeded. My books, the grants I've had over the years, the roles I've taken. I'm a professor, but I applied for promotion a couple of times that I didn't get. Went for interviews that I was not successful. But that didn't push me from achieving what I want to achieve. Got a lot of journal rejections as well. So don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. And for me, one thing about many people is that they're afraid to take a risk. Taking risk is not bad. Don't die until you're dead. I always say that every time, like, okay, because at the end, if you're thinking that you're dead already and you don't do anything, then of course you've given up. So don't give up. You will achieve what you want to achieve. Persevere, be resilient, and that's why I'm so happy with what you're doing. because you're really blazing the trail. You're inspiring people. The word resilience is important. We are facing a crisis. We need to know how to adapt to change. Leaders need to know how to be resilient. At the moment, I'm working on a paradigm called resilient leadership. The whole idea is because if you're not a resilient leader, you can't succeed.
Yeah.
Individuals need to be resilient. And for me, that's the key takeaway. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't die until you're dead. And be resilient.
Thank you so much, Christian. Honestly, thank you so much, especially for the kind words at the end. And yeah, I have gone through a lot of things. But yeah, my story will come later on, and you'll understand the reason why I'm doing this. But I don't know if my audience has been taking notes. I have. Like I said, I'm dealing with a professor, so we always have to, because you've said so many things. And I'll try to summarize what you have said in terms of, building resilience. So being able to manage your time. And I think I'll add to that is being able to prioritize, because when you're managing your time, you need to be able to prioritize what is more important. Because there are some things that you just, have to keep down at the bottom of the list. You said support network, being optimistic, taking constructive feedback, which again, I think it's really, really important. Not just feedback or being criticized. That can put people off, but, looking at how to improve yourself based on the feedback that, you have received. Having a growth mindset, you also mentioned that. And then the last, what you just said in the last 1-2 minutes is don't be afraid to fail, fail forward. Thank you so much for this very, very insightful podcast. Once again, thank you for staying tuned to the podcast. And remember that if you do have a story to share, just like Christian has said, don't be afraid to share, a failure. So if you have something that you want to share, send me an email to livingresilient101@gmail.com, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.